We live in a world where a touch of your thumb unlocks your phone and a fingerprint grants you access at airports. Biometrics, using our bodies as keys, has become routine. The fingerprint, with its loops, whorls, and arches, is now the gold standard for personal verification. It's a password you can't forget, a signature that's nearly impossible to forge. But this isn't just a marvel of the digital age. The use of fingerprints to prove identity is far older than we think. Its roots stretch back to colonial India, where practical problems demanded creative solutions. Before microchips and sensors, there were ink pads and paper. The story of the fingerprint is a journey to a time when trust and identity were fragile, and certainty was desperately needed. In 19th century India, without photo IDs or digital records, administrators faced a daunting challenge: how to prove someone's identity beyond doubt. The fingerprint emerged not to catch criminals, but to solve the problem of trust. So next time you press your finger to a screen, remember, you're part of a legacy that began in India, a simple act connecting you to a century-old innovation. Sometimes, the greatest solutions are hidden in the most obvious places. When we think of scientific breakthroughs, we often look to the West: Newton, Edison, Scotland Yard. But the story of fingerprinting begins in India, not as a footnote, but as the foundation. Here the idea of using fingerprints for identification became a practical system. British colonial rule in India created unique challenges: millions of people, diverse languages, unreliable signatures, and rampant fraud. Traditional methods failed, but India had a cultural practice, using thumb impressions, or tipsahi, as marks of authenticity. British administrators saw the scientific potential in these inked marks. They realized fingerprints were not random, but unique and permanent. The science of fingerprinting was born from the convergence of Indian tradition and colonial necessity. Without India's context and challenges, fingerprinting might have remained a theory for decades. India was the crucible where fingerprinting was tested, refined, and proven. Its contribution is the very bedrock of modern identification. Our story begins in 1858 in Bengal with Sir William Herschel, a British magistrate facing rampant fraud and identity disputes. Signatures were unreliable, names inconsistent. He needed a foolproof solution. During a contract signing, Herschel asked a local businessman, Rajyada Konai, to place his handprint on the document. What started as a symbolic gesture soon became a practical tool. Herschel began requiring handprints, then fingerprints, on official documents to prevent fraud and track identities. Over years, he noticed something remarkable: fingerprints never changed. He took his own prints repeatedly and saw the patterns remained the same. Herschel wasn't a scientist, but his meticulous record-keeping proved the permanence of fingerprints. His Hooghly experiment was the world's first large-scale use of fingerprints for identification. Herschel's work laid the foundation for fingerprint science, not in a lab, but in the real world. He showed that fingerprints could anchor identity to the individual, reliably and permanently. This was the first step in turning fingerprints into a global standard. It all began with a simple, practical solution to a very human problem. While Herschel worked in India, Dr. Henry Faulds, a Scottish physician in Japan, approached fingerprints from a scientific angle. Faulds's curiosity was sparked by ancient pottery bearing the potter's fingerprints. He began collecting and studying prints, using ink and glass plates. Faulds confirmed two things: fingerprints are permanent and, crucially, unique to each person. He was the first to propose fingerprints could identify criminals. In 1880, he published his findings, suggesting fingerprints could solve crimes by matching prints left at scenes. Faulds connected the dots between uniqueness, permanence, and forensic potential. His ideas were initially ignored in Britain, but gained traction as Herschel's work in India became known. Faulds provided the scientific theory that Herschel's practical work hinted at. Together, their discoveries set the stage for fingerprints to become a tool of law and order. The world was ready for a system that could turn these insights into action. The next breakthrough would come from India once again. The science and the system were about to converge. Herschel had the prints, Faulds had the theory. But there was no way to organize thousands of fingerprints. Enter Sir Edward Henry, Inspector General of Police in Bengal in the 1890s. Henry needed a reliable system to identify criminals beyond the flawed Bertillon method. He established the world's first fingerprint bureau in Calcutta in 1897. But the real breakthrough came from two Indian officers, Khan Bahadur Azizul Haque and Rai Bahadur Hemchandra Bose. Haque devised the mathematical formula that became the backbone of the Henry classification system, grouping prints into over 1,000 categories. Bose refined the system and created a telegraphic code for rapid sharing of fingerprint data. Their work made fingerprinting scalable and practical for policing. The Henry classification system, built on Indian ingenuity, became the global standard. It was a triumph of collaboration, British vision, Indian genius. Without Haque and Bose, fingerprinting would have remained a local experiment. Their system unlocked the true power of fingerprints for the world. Why did fingerprinting flourish in India, not London or New York? Colonial India was a perfect storm, massive population, diverse languages and no standardized names. The British administration desperately needed a universal, reliable way to identify people. The colonial context allowed for sweeping changes. There was no entrenched bureaucracy to resist innovation. Officials like Herschel and Henry could experiment on a massive scale. Crucially, Indian talent, Haque and Bose, provided the mathematical and operational breakthroughs. India offered the problem, the population, and the opportunity. The collaboration, though shaped by colonial power, produced a revolutionary system. Fingerprinting was not just invented in India, it was proven indispensable there. The world's first modern identification system was forged in the crucible of Indian necessity. India's unique context made global innovation possible. The Henry classification system's success in Bengal was immediate and transformative. The world's first fingerprint bureau replaced outdated methods, allowing police to identify repeat offenders quickly. Its effectiveness spread beyond India. Sir Edward Henry took the system to Scotland Yard in 1901. London's adoption was a global endorsement, and soon, police forces worldwide followed. The St. Louis World's Fair in 1904 introduced the system to American law enforcement, sparking rapid adoption. Bose's telegraphic code enabled international sharing of fingerprint data, an early global network. The system, born from India's challenges, proved universally effective. It replaced unreliable methods everywhere it went. Police worldwide now spoke the language of loops, whorls, and arches. The Calcutta Fingerprint Bureau's legacy is a global standard for forensic identification. For nearly a century, this Indian innovation defined how the world proved identity. The story of fingerprinting is a reminder that history often overlooks its true heroes. The Indian context and the contributions of Haque and Bose are central, not peripheral, to forensic science. Their work in Hooghly and Calcutta turned an idea into a world-changing technology. Today, every biometric ID system, from passports to Aadhaar, traces its roots to their innovations. The principles they established, linking identity to the body, are more relevant than ever in our digital world. This story challenges the myth that innovation only comes from the West or elite labs. It shows that urgent problems and local ingenuity can change the world. India gave the world more than a tool for catching criminals. It redefined identity itself. The ridges on our fingertips tell a story, and a crucial chapter was written in India. The invisible signature that secures our lives today began with ink-stained hands in 19th century India. The story of fingerprinting in India raises important questions. How do today's biometric systems reflect the original goals of solving administrative challenges? Can we separate scientific achievement from the colonial context in which it arose? What modern challenges are driving new biometric technologies, and what lessons can we learn from fingerprinting's rollout? Why are the contributions of figures like Haque and Bose still overlooked? How can we ensure that history remembers all its innovators, not just those who held the pen?